So welcome to this week's Code Untapped Tech Talk. So I'm Ez, and we've got my co-founder Jay. How's it going, Jay?
Not too bad, Ez, not too bad.
So what are we talking about today? I think a really pressing question that a lot of founders actually have, which is how do you go about building a tech team for your startup? So I think this is such an interesting one, isn't it? Because we've built startups, you're building a startup, I've invested in startups. We both worked in tech teams and the rest. So where do you even begin with this? How about Jay? You're at the moment you're building a startup, right? So you brought on you built a team. Literally at the moment you're building a team. So from your perspective, what do you think you look for when you're trying to do this?
I think I look for there's two things I look for actually. The first thing I look for is the skill set. So you've got to look at the skills matrix and what you require to build the product or the service that you're trying to deliver. Yeah. So the first thing I'd look for is, where do they fit in that skills matrix? Is it a gap that I need? Then yes, that's a big tick. Bam. And then do they fit with the team dynamic as well? Because actually, especially on the startup side, where the teams are very, very small, you're usually going to be working really, really closely with other team members. Yeah. So you've got to have that, you've got to fit with the team, you've got to connect with the team on a sort of like an emotional level as well. And I think sometimes people forget that because you almost don't want the Lone Ranger because everybody
that 10x developer, the one who's going to transform.
You know what? I think I don't know. Those guys are good sometimes, but I mean, for me, yeah. The thing about when you have a small team, the power of a small team is I believe the communication, that intercommunication, the sharing of ideas, the brainstorming. Sometimes myself, when I'm working with my co-founder, my tech co-founder, actually, we sit together and sometimes we code together. We do a lot of peer programming and stuff like that. And if you don't gel with that person and you're spending, 8, 9, 10 hours a day with that person, it's gonna affect. Yeah. So definitely that's almost as important as it's equally as important as making sure that you've got complementary skills and that you have the right skills dynamic to get you to your goal. Yeah. What about you, Ez? Because I know you've worked in quite a few teams at Neighbor as well when you're building Neighbor as a startup, and also in your in your investment banking career.
Yeah. So I mean, my time at Lehman, my time at Credit Suisse, I worked in teams, technology teams of different sizes, different skill sets, different experience levels, and then I built teams at Neighbor, and then at ImpactX, I've invested in teams, right? So I've seen all sorts and experienced all sorts. So what do I look for? I guess let's make the assumption that we need a team, right? Because that's point one: is do you even need a team, or are you going to offshore your technology, right? So we've made the decision for whatever reason that we need the team. I think where it often starts is, well, I need a CTO. Right, that's my starting point. I need a CTO, or I need a team lead, and then we'll figure it out from there. Or the flip side of that is, I just need a bunch of grads just to get some work done. I need some young kids who'll come in, hit the ground running, and just do stuff. Wave some pixie dust, and all of a sudden off they go. And I've got a new product, and they're going to build a bank for me. Right. So we've seen it, right? We've seen it. Yeah. I think for me, a lot depends around what core skill sets you have, and how comprehensive is technology to your organization. Is technology an enabler? So are you just taking off-the-shelf parts, customizing them in order for you to get moving? Do you just need a website and a Shopify site built for you? You don't really need a CTO or a tech team for that. You just need someone who's technically capable. Are you building a simple app? Well, maybe you just need a good technologist. are you building a deep learning technology platform? Well, you might want a CTO for that piece. So I really like to start with what is it we are and what is it we need from an output. You know me, I'm all about output, right? What is the output that we require? And then I tend to start to work backwards from there. I think I do like to go more senior with my first hires. I know not everyone agrees with that, but you know, whether you can get a lead developer or a potential CTO type individual in place to almost take that pressure off of you and start driving on certain decisions. And I know that's in essence what you've done with Some Group, right?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, when I started building Some Group, as you know, as while I was working. So while I was a consultant, I was building Some Group on the side. And so I built a lot of the infrastructure up front before I started looking for a team. Yeah.
Well, this is exactly what I did at Neighbor.
Yeah,
right? Exactly.
Yeah. I remember when in Switzerland you used to work in.
Yeah, exactly. Evening, weekends,
great job
at my desk. Computer, laptop on the side, plugged into a different. I don't know how I got away with that, but somehow. Right.
Oh dear. Yeah, and so so that's really interesting because I'm starting. It's a really good point you've raised there, because I'm starting to sort of trying to transition away from the code, just because, not because I feel that, you know, code is beneath me or anything like that. I love to code and I would code all day long. It's just that when you're building a startup, there's just other things that you have to do. Yeah. You know, you have to go and fundraise, you have to build pitch decks and all of that sort of stuff. And, you know, we've got a really, really small team. So you just have to fit in, you have to do the stuff just to keep, you know, just to keep the wheels moving. So in saying that, I sort of agree with you in terms of it's better to get one or two really experienced individuals to help you, yeah, because usually you're going to be so when you work for the big corps, I find is that people become niche,
that's really true.
And they become like experts in a particular area or particular technology or particular flow, and that's fine because you have you have capacity in people, so you can sort of fill the pipeline, you know, the delivery pipeline with all of the different roles that you need to get the, you know, to deliver your product or your service. So, you know, you have all those roles, but when you're in a small startup, you need to, one person will be covering multiple roles, you know, and hence you need somebody with experience that has probably done most of those roles anyway, so they have, even if they're not like super, you know, that's not the thing that they particularly are really, really good at, they've covered it so that they've covered it enough to get you off the ground.
Well, you raise an interesting point, right? Because when you're starting from the very beginning, do you need experts or do you need good enough, right?
Yeah, it's interesting. That's a really, I think you need it's just in time, because your delivery is just in time as well. So you need people that have enough skills to get you to that next milestone, which then that milestone might release some capital where you can go out and get those real niche people that can then, you know, give you that real USP that you need for your product. Or
but then it starts to become quite cyclical, right? Almost circular in that sense, because I see this a lot. Founders going, I need a technologist, I need a CTO, and the conversation is often, no, you just need a good lead developer at this moment in time who can build a good enough solution to your current problem, right? No, but surely I need a CTO. You need a CTO when you need to build a team, when you need to build a roadmap, when you need someone who can think about strategy for your organization. The problem is compensation, right?
CTOs.
Because CTOs cost money, but you might not even have enough money to pay a lead dev. So you need to compensate them with something. And often, what is that thing they get compensated with? Title,
Yeah,
right? And equity, right?
Mm.
So they become the CTO by de facto, even though they might not be at CTO level. And so you see this pattern over and over and over again. But here's the question: is that necessarily a bad thing?
I don't think it is, because you want somebody to, you still want somebody to grow into the role as well. Yeah.
Right, exactly.
And in a startup, you might call yourself a CEO, but
It's like I said, you're playing at CEO until
yeah. That's your first CEO gig, yeah. And so,
exactly.
are you even a CEO? So,
100%.
so going out and saying, right, I need a CTO, I need a Robin to my Batman. That is just can just be a nonsense, really. So what you need is the people that can get the job done and can deliver you the product that you need to get you to the next milestone. Definitely. That's what you need.
I agree with that.
Yeah, you definitely need that. And there I would go for, I think, so my take on it is this: I would use at the beginning when your first employee, I think you need, for me, I would go for an all-rounder. Yeah. I would go for an all-rounder, and I would go for an all-rounder that complements, if you're a technologist yourself, then go for an all-rounder that complements your skill set. Yeah. And if you're not a technologist, then you really need to get you really have to actually get some advice actually from somebody who is a technologist, and and get them to sort of work out, sort of outline what you're trying to build or what you're trying to deliver.
Well, this is where the advisory piece starts to come in handy, right? If you can't get or afford a CTO, sometimes it's good just to have an ex-CTO or an existing CTO as an advisor to your organization to help you grow your next generation of talent that you're going to bring in, even though you don't have that level just yet. But they can help guide you with that decision-making process, right?
Yeah, definitely, because also, I mean, the role of a CTO really is, like you said, is to provide governance. Yeah, is to provide like a roadmap and all of those sort of things. But it's also to choose the right technologies as well. Yeah. And choosing the right technologies for the thing that you're trying to deliver is actually a difficult thing, and that requires experience. It requires experience because you've got a gamut of different technologies out there that all do the same thing. Yeah. How do you choose? And how do you choose? What is the criteria? And really,
and normally the way you end up choosing is that's what I'm good at. Right? Why didn't we build Neighbor in .NET? Because that's what I was using at the time, right? So front end was Angular because that's what I was using at the time.
Exactly, yeah. And we always say as technologists, it's horses for courses. You choose the technology that fits the problem that you're trying to solve. Yeah, but you can only know what technology is if you've been exposed to that technology yourself, so that's where experience comes in. So if you choose somebody who's got experience and has been around the block a bit, then they can sort of give you an opinion on, well, why would we choose that technology over that technology for our problem? And that's what you want to, and you want somebody that in those sorts of, I would say, in those sort of C-suite roles, you need people that actually think about the problem more than just deliver a solution. Yeah. Because I think that's the difference, as I would say, between somebody who's like, say, a CTO or a VP of engineering. A CTO, you'd expect a CTO to think about the strategy, but they would also understand why you choose a particular technology path and what are the benefits of choosing that particular technology over another. And then looking at it from a long-term perspective, right? Is there support in that technology? Who's actually providing technology? All of that sort of thing. Yeah.
I think then it gets quite interesting because, okay, let's say we found that great tech lead who may or may not be CTO level yet, but they're good all-rounder, they've built stuff before and can get us to good enough. But now we need to expand the team a little bit because there's just too much demand, right? And I think often the question is, well, what do I hire next? So I hire juniors, do I hire specialists, do I hire front end and back end, do I hire testers? Where do I go, right? What do I do? And this is always a really interesting challenge. And I personally think it comes down to, again, what's your budget, right? How much cash do you actually have? And, what is it that you're trying to achieve with this? Do you need specialists, or actually at this stage, it probably makes sense to get a few more generalists, so that everyone can continue to dip in, dip out, and fix the most pressing problems at this moment in time. And eventually you can focus on building a more specialist focused team that can concentrate on, front end or event messaging based systems or databases or whatever it might be, right?
Because I think at that level, I think you're right, because I think at that level, especially when you're growing a startup from really small, what you have in a small startup is every person in that startup is a single man dependency.
Yeah. Oh, 100%.
And like, if you take any of those guys, guys or girls out of the picture, and then development stops.
No, I think that's a really important point, because I always like to say you need at least 3 people for any role, right? Because at any one point, at any one moment in time, one of those people could be on holiday or sick, right? So you need that level of redundancy, but it doesn't mean you necessarily need 3 CTOs or 3 front-end developers, but you need enough people to be able to step in to fill in the gap.
Exactly.
When that skill set suddenly dropped out of the team for whatever reason. I really like that fact around, that idea around, actually at the very beginning, you just need a team of generalists who can jump into whatever problem you need solving.
And that's where the team dynamic has to work, because what you have in a very small team is you have a lot of cross learning. So you'll have a generalist, but you'll have a generalist who's got a bent to the front end, and you might have a generalist who's got a bent to cloud infrastructure, or a generalist who's got a bent to the server side code.
And what we're finding is JavaScript is actually making this easier now.
It is making this easier, but it is definitely, and that's those sorts of languages. I think JavaScript's one of the only languages where you can use it anywhere. So with Node.js, you've got the server side, and there's a lot of, because the JavaScript community is so big, you've got a lot of support. There's a lot of libraries and stuff out there, and then you've obviously got the front end with all the web stuff with JavaScript, and then you've got things like the different frameworks like React and Vue and so forth like that as well. But there are other technologies out there which are trying to do something similar. But again, but to be honest, it is really horses for courses. And when you start to look at this is an interesting thing, because when you start to provide specialist type features or functionality, you realize that some of the general purpose languages might not support what you want. Especially if you're building stuff for the mobile. The mobile is an interesting one, because there are a lot of cross-platform frameworks and stuff like that, but then there's particular features that may be only implemented in the actual native code. So native Kotlin, or native Swift. So then you need to think, well, can you dip down into that as well? So it's having those generalists that are open to learning as well.
I agree. So then I guess final point around this is, so where do we find people, right? How do you go about finding individuals? There are many sources, and I've certainly brought people in from groups such as Coding Black Females, for example. I've looked at organizations like Makers Academy, where you can hire individuals who've gone through code camps as well. But then I've gone through recruitment agents, and you pay 15-20% depending on the deal that you get to hire people in. And actually, my first team at Neighbor was done through recruitment agents. Actually, it was pretty effective. You just got to be prepared to pay for it. What about you? I mean, I know you're still really early. Have you started thinking about this? Have you got any thoughts about how you're going to look to build your team?
Really, to be honest, it's a bit like, for me, it's a bit like hiring a builder or hiring a plumber. I want some sort of reference. So I would use my network. So I've got friends in this space. We are geeks. So all of our Oh, our entire network is it's full of geeks and full of
Yeah,
so
that's
yeah, so
true.
that's what so that's literally what I would do is reach out to the network, reach out, you know, you can do things like go to meetup groups and coding
Mhm.
clubs and all of those sort of things. And then you will meet like-minded people. And especially if you're not a technologist, yeah,
Mhm.
but you understand what you need to build, yeah, but you're interested in technology and interested in understanding the gap between the
Yeah,
technology itself and the functionality or the features or the domain space, then you know going to those meetup groups is really, you know, is really important because you'll meet people that want to do what you would like them to do for you. So it's almost like a match there, you know.
brilliant.
Yeah.
I
So
agree.
yeah.
I agree. So look, some really good snippets there from, you know, leadership, CTO, lead dev, to experience levels, to team construction, to where would you source them from. So I think some real good food for thought in that session. So as always, it's been a pleasure. That's for me. That's enough for me this week. Jay, any final words from you?
Only to carry on coding, guys.
All right. Well, good luck, and let's check in with you next time. All right. Okay. Take care.